Welcome to another episode of Chris McDaniel's America here on the Midnight Ride Network, your home of the anti-establishment movement in this country. With me as always, Jack Fairchild. Jack, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Well, it's been roughly about a week, I suppose.
Yeah.
Since everything went down with the presidential election. And there's a lot to talk about because we are, as we stated in the last show, right at the beginning of what we hope to be a transformative 4 years for President Trump. However, if things don't break our way tomorrow with the Senate election of the majority leader among the Republicans, it may not be as transformative as we think. Tomorrow's the fight. It's the fight for us versus the establishment, for the so-called Trump revolution versus the status quo. Tomorrow's the fight. It's the fight for the big red space between California and New York, and whether or not those people in that red space, their voices are going to be heard. Tomorrow's the day. If we can establish a victory somehow in the Senate election of the majority leader, we can actually say we've won this election. Oh, I know everybody's really fired up about this agenda. Everybody's pumped up that Trump's going to get all these things done. How? How, if you can't have influence in the Senate, will he get things done? Now, remember, the margins in the House are already going to be incredibly close, about like it was the last 4 years. And every time there was a close vote then, a large number of Republicans didn't quite have the backbone to do what they needed to do, and we couldn't get things accomplished. Now, imagine in the Senate where you have a majority leader that's just like Mitch McConnell, one that hates Trump, one that's been an impediment for Trump, one that's tried to violate and block Trump at every turn. Imagine if he's there in the Senate, and then he can use the excuse of that 60-vote filibuster to get things done. Curious, Jack, look at me for a second. How will Trump even implement a single promise he made to the American people if he can't help or control the Senate, at least in some respects? Can you answer that?
He's not going to be able to.
And I keep hearing these apologists out there. Well, the president's not supposed to control the Senate. You're exactly right. There's separation of powers in this country. But guess what? The Senate's not supposed to obstruct the president of their own party either, especially when that president won by a massive mandate, or at least we think he did. Because if we lose tomorrow, the mandate's not going to matter a whole lot. You'll see what I'm talking about. I may sound like I'm a pessimist. I know these people. I've been in the rooms with these people. I know how they think, and they're not giving up power without a fight. Now, I'm going to get to that later in the show because it's getting me fired up. I have no business getting this angry this early in this show.
Yeah, we're just getting started.
I just know where we're heading. And I know the American people are back asleep. I know they're doing victory laps right now, trying to watch the drama unfold as to who Trump's going to appoint for all these massive cabinet position places in the government, and they've lost the ability to recognize civics. I'm frustrated by it. But I guess if there's good news, we're at least not Democrats. We're at least not liberals. For the love of the Lord, these people have gone completely crazier than I thought they were prior to the election. Now it's the blame game. You wonder why I hate politicians so much on both sides. None of them can actually take blame for anything that occurs. Here's the way it works. A victory, they all circle and want credit for the victory. A loss, and they all want to point and blame somebody else. Poor Joe Biden has been once again blamed and ridiculed and attacked for a loss that he really didn't have a whole lot to do with. Let's be fair. Joe Biden was not a good president, but he wasn't a radical socialist, though Miss Harris was either. And if you're going to do an analysis, the Democrats are in the process of doing many analysis right now, trying to understand why they lost. The short answer is this: stop putting up radicals. I mean, identity politics is not your friend. What did Carville say the other day? The dumbest words in the English language. He said, defund the police. He's right, because he said we never could get that stench off of us. Well, that stench came from the radical American leftists. Now, it's the Democrats' fault for bringing those people in their tent and keeping them there and coddling them, right?
And putting them up and elevating them into big positions.
AOC, the mouthpiece of the party, a lunatic.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong, I think the whole party's lost. It's completely lost. But if they're going to blame somebody, why blame the old white man?
Well, isn't that their
Exactly.
standard operating procedure?
Exactly. Well, here's the thing. Even Nancy Pelosi today, or yesterday, she basically blamed Biden for the loss, said he should have stepped aside sooner. Mm-hmm. Now, I take issue with that, not because I like Biden, it's just because I dislike Nancy Pelosi that much. And here's the reason I take issue with it. You do realize that in that short amount of time, I never thought we would see the end of that election. I saw so many commercials, so many ads. Miss Harris was constantly on TV.
Yep.
She raised $1 billion.
Yep.
And lost. I'm curious, do you think 1.1 billion would have won it?
No.
No. Do you think 1.2 billion would have won it?
No.
You think an extra 3 weeks in the field with her would have won this race?
It probably would have led to a bigger defeat.
Bigger defeat because she wasn't a good candidate. So number 2, it's not just that they held radical policies. You took a lady, let's just be honest here. We got in trouble earlier for saying she was a DEI hire. Mm-hmm. When Biden himself and the people that made the position to bring her in the first place said the reason she was given the position as vice president was because she was a black female.
Yep.
That's the definition of a DEI hire. Now, I'm sure she has qualities. I don't know what they are. I know that she's not good at speaking.
No.
I know she's not good grasping policy.
No.
I know she ran the entire race on a singular issue, which was abortion.
Yep.
And for some reason, women are going to lose all their rights if Trump wins.
Yeah, that was the story.
I'm curious, women, have you lost rights yet? I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen evidence of it yet. I mean, you're still working, you're still voting, you're still going, having a great time out there. It was all hyperbole, but that's the way she campaigned. Bad candidate, bad idea. She avoided the press. She avoided the tough questions. She tried to play softball politics. Her best game was the celebrity game, which is a weak game to play.
Yeah.
And so you have all of these things mounting against the candidate. And what does Pelosi do? She blames Joe Biden. Pelosi seems to think that an extra month would have changed the election. We all had our minds made up 3 months ago. Let's not kid ourselves. Everybody you talked to pretty much knew exactly what was going to happen months ago. And that's why the polls were so rigid. They were so locked in. They kept talking about how the polls were so close and they weren't moving at all. That's because everybody's minds were made up. But the reason they were is we knew Trump as a proven, or in their minds, an unproven commodity. We knew what we liked, or they knew what they hated.
Yep.
That wasn't going to change with an extra month or
No.
2. And if you have, same for the Democrats, Ms. Harris could have campaigned forever. What's going to change our positions of her? And the moderates, those few in the middle, what they basically checked was experience and leadership. They didn't trust her to lead the country. It wasn't sexism or racism or misogyny. They just didn't trust her because she wasn't a good candidate. But poor Joe has to take the blame. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. It's not just Joe. It's us, too.
Oh, of course it is.
It's us, too. The Democrats, when they're doing this analysis of the race, this, I guess, what do you call that? Introspection.
Yeah.
You look in the mirror and, you try to understand why it was we lost. And so you ask tough questions. And you speak words like realignment. And you say things like self-reflection. Even regret comes to mind. And as they're having these conversations, they're trying to find people to blame, but not themselves. So they blame, I don't know, us. And, but let me reconsider this for a moment. Because the left, at least they have the courage to consider why they lost, even though they're wrong. It wasn't that, misogyny or race or any of that stuff. How about the press? Which is the arm of the left, right? I mean, the press and the left are basically like this.
Absolutely, yes.
So let me back up for a second and look at this from a slightly different angle. The left, at least, they're asking questions. What's the press doing? The press isn't doing any self-reflection.
No.
Have you noticed that?
Absolutely.
They've doubled down on how righteous they are and how wrong we all are. At least the left's trying to blame each other in the left just a little bit.
Yeah.
The press is blaming us, and they're saying we just didn't understand. We were confused. The voters were misinformed. How?
It's crazy.
Okay, so let's look at some of these examples. CNN, I don't have to tell you what they think about.
Yeah.
But think about CBS, okay? They have a reporter there. His name is John Dickerson. He actually shed tears during a post-election interview on Stephen Colbert's show. He cried. And he said he was going to have to struggle to think about what to say to his young sons as the result of this defeat. Colbert, in his intelligence, claims the American people just don't care about democracy. That's what he said. They don't care about losing democracy. How many people voted? What is 78 million or something? I mean, it was a record number of people that cast ballots.
It was a large number.
Clearly, the people care about democracy. No, they didn't fall for his nonsense. That was the distinction. And then you move on from there. The View. The words they had for Trump's victory. Pathetic. Disturbing. Those are strong labels. But again, they're not looking at themselves and saying, we could have run a better candidate. Or, maybe those identity politics weren't the right way to govern. Or, maybe defund the police wasn't the right phrase for a couple of years ago. Or maybe, we burned down the inner cities and didn't do anything to stop it. They're still the press. They're just elitist. They're still blaming us and not doing anything to try to recognize maybe the role they played in this. MSNBC. She took it further. Joy Reid. She blamed white women.
I saw that.
I mean, white women.
Well,
did I miss the memo? Did the white women just decide not to vote for Harris? I realized they didn't vote in as large a numbers as they hoped. But is it the fault of why do Democrats always have to begin every conversation by at least creating a division?
Because that's all they know. That's all they know. They strive on division politics. I mean, you look at every way that they go. It's always about us versus them.
Well, Van Jones, he says folks are hurting because of the results. That's true. I'm sure some people are hurting. But then he said this. It's weird. Again, there's always division. He had to bring race into it again. He said that African-American women, they know something about being talked down to. What's that got to do with the price of tea in China? First of all, and the media has been talking down to us for generations.
Still are.
And he's still talking about it today. CNN, there was a really hilarious moment there. Have you ever seen this PBS NewsHour there? This White House correspondent, Laura Barron Lopez. She says, listen to this. Listen to this. She says the reason Harris lost is that, unlike Trump, Harris did not have a media ecosystem to help her.
Are you kidding me? With a straight face.
Straight face.
She does not consider the mainstream media the largest echo chamber?
The media ecosystem. But now get this. This is where it gets interesting, because she has the guts to say this, like, on camera. That's something you say in a bar after 6 drinks.
Yeah.
When you have no sense left. She said it on camera, but the data shows just the otherwise. If you looked at the Media Research Center, they actually take all the stories and then they break them down as to which stories were positive about Trump and which stories were negative about Trump, right?
Yeah.
They take the stories, they break them down. Which stories are positive about Miss Harris, which stories are negative about Miss Harris. The numbers don't lie. If you look at the Media Echo Center, the ecosystem that she was complaining about, 78% of those stories about Miss Harris were positive, only 22% negative. I'm going to say it again for this lady who is a White House correspondent. She should have better sense than that. Think about it, 78% positive for Miss Harris, only 22% negative. Let's talk about Trump's numbers. What do you think they are? 15% positive for Trump, 85% narrative. The entire media ecosystem, echo chamber, the entire media establishment was against President Trump. And she says that Harris lost because, didn't have a media ecosystem to help her. She had everybody helping her. With the exception of a handful of folks with alternative media, everybody was in the tank for Miss Harris. Everybody. Every celebrity. By the way, I posted this today. Has anybody heard from Robert De Niro lately?
No. I'm wondering how he's doing.
Super weird. He was so vocal for a while, and now we should check on him.
Hopefully he lived up to one of his campaign promises that if his side didn't win, he'd leave the country. Maybe he's left the country, Chris.
Yeah, that would be great. What about what's those others? Whatever happened to Clooney? Oh, I heard today that he was done.
Clooney.
I'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, I'll say that one.
He says he's done with politics. Well, thank God. We've been hoping he was done with politics for many years. Go back to making great big movies. What was the last good movie he was in? Seriously, all joking aside.
I don't know.
Nobody does. Why is he considered a superstar when he can't make good movies?
Was it the first Ocean's movie? Was that the last good one?
Was that even a great movie?
It was fun.
Nobody watched it. I mean, it was the few men that watched it got a kick out of it, but nobody else really watched it. My mom would have no idea what the Ocean's 11 movie is. Seriously, what gives George Clooney even the label of celebrity? Have I missed something in Hollywood?
He was on that TV show for years. I guess that's it.
ER?
Yeah.
That came on right after Gilligan's Island in the 70s. I haven't seen ER in 35 years. Have you?
No.
How long does Stardom last?
Apparently, as long as the left thinks that you're useful.
He's not a star. He's a has-been. But again, we'll get to him in a second. So here's some more things. I'm talking about the media and their inability to even accept that maybe a lot of this was their fault. At least the Democrats are pointing to each other. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
The moderate Democrats are blaming the liberal Democrats. The liberal Democrats are blaming Joe Biden. The old be a white man, right? At least they're talking about it. The press seems to be obsessed in their ivory tower that somehow we all just are stupid, just missed it, and we were all misinformed by an ecosystem that I didn't know existed until this White House correspondent pointed it out.
Yeah, and Chris, before you move completely away from Nancy Pelosi, can I point out how hypocritical she is? Again, this is a woman talking about Biden should have stepped down. When's she going to step down? I mean, again, she's real quick to say that Biden stuck around too long, yet she continues to run and run and run. How old is Nancy Pelosi? How many terms does she really need to serve?
It's really hard to say how old she is. She's been there a long time. And here's what I know, trying to be kind. You make a valid point. We are as motivated, conservatives, by defeating Nancy Pelosi as we were about Ms. Harris.
Yeah.
And so as long as she stays in office, she's a lightning rod for controversy because we've heard the things she said. We've watched her tear those papers up that night during the State of the Union. We know who she is. And so naturally, she's part of the problem. But she can't let go because what it boils down to is her ego is so fragile. Despite the millions of dollars that she's made, despite the power that she acquired, her ego is so fragile. She can't survive in a country where they don't call her a congresswoman. And that's sad. It's sad when you wrap up your entire existence in an office and can't, even for the good of your party, step aside and let somebody new and maybe better take those positions. In fact, she's made the same mistakes Joe Biden has time and time and time again. He was the same guy. He let ego control. He couldn't let go of the position. And if the ship goes down, the ship goes down. Finally, they talk him out of it, but she's no different. She's no better. In fact, she's worse. At least Joe had a moderate streak from when he was in the Senate. Nancy's never even shown a propensity to be moderate. No. She's a radical leftist with radical ideas. By the way, the reason they lost the race.
Yeah.
She's a big part of that. Now, a couple of things real quick. We're going to get back to that in a second. But centrist Democrats right now turning on the liberals. That's a good idea. I would like to see a fight for a while.
I would too.
But I can tell you this, it's always the loudest in the room that's going to control it. And no matter what the centrist Dems do, by the way, there aren't many centrist Dems left. There's like 7 in the whole country. Like 7 moderate Democrats left.
That's probably accurate.
But they are pointing fingers at the ones that are liberal. And they're saying that identity politics could have cost this race. Yes.
100%.
People in this country are sick of being lectured to. We're sick of being told we don't count. We're sick of being told that if you live in Massachusetts in that blue speck, or New York in that blue speck, that you have more sense and more ability than those that represent the vast majority of the geography in this country. And then you get to the left coast, no point in talking about that. They'll tank California yet.
Yep.
But it's their ability to look down their noses at the rest of this country, and that's what motivates conservatives. I'll take it a step further. We saw shifts in demographics that voted for Trump this time. The big part of that was they're sick of being talked down to. They're sick of being told that men don't matter. They're sick of being told that transgenders need to be used in women's bathrooms. They know common sense applies at some point, and they're sick of hearing it. And so if the Democrats want to maintain that course, more power to them, because there's a lot of elections to win in the future if they do that. One more thing. Information and or disinformation. They're claiming that we were just misinformed.
Yeah.
But I don't know how. And they're not giving specific examples of how we were misinformed other than calling us bigots.
Well, Elon Musk bought Twitter and changed it to X, and that's where you got a ton of misinformation. I'm sure that's part of their spin. I've actually seen that said by a couple of talking heads in the media where they're trying to straight up say that that's where but again, does it outweigh the misinformation that was given to us from the actual mainstream media? The fact that they, again, going back to Joe Biden, the media was complicit in hiding just how much Joe Biden had declined. They were complicit in trying to cover that up until it was exposed on a debate stage, and then they were ready to push him out the door, just like Nancy Pelosi and all the others.
The point is that the Democrats are a very confused party right now.
Yep.
Here's another one. There's a pollster out there, Lichtman, whatever. This pollster, of course, had this great model that he had set up. Mm-hmm. And the model was a predictor of presidential success. According to this pollster, it was pretty much guaranteed that Ms. Harris was going to win. Mm-hmm. The model pointed to her victory. So he was asked the other day on CNN, what happened? How could this possibly occur? His response, he says the keys depend on a rational, pragmatic electorate.
So insult the vast majority.
Hold on. Think about it.
Yeah.
A rational, pragmatic electorate. Well, first of all, in an age of modern politics, there's not a lot of pragmatism or reason on either side sometimes. But consider, who has less than the other? Reason, pragmatism. The left is lost as they can be. They are convinced right now, unequivocally, that Donald Trump is Hitler. That's not reason. That's not rationale. It's fear driving that. So he says this, once again, offending the voters who supported Trump, ignoring the problems in his own party. I thought this pollster was supposed to be unbiased. Clearly, these pollsters are biased, right? But he blames it, and then he keeps going. He goes, the keys depend on a rational, pragmatic electorate, which he's implied no one is. Okay, fine. Then he blamed it on disinformation and Elon Musk. And then he blamed it on misogyny, racism, and xenophobia. And then he said the keys are not supposed to have anything to do with that. I don't get the criteria. Every voter is driven, at least in some respects, by concern or fear. And just because Republicans have a fear or a concern about the southern border doesn't make them xenophobic.
No.
Right? Doesn't make them racist. It makes them concerned about what open borders can do to a free society. Right? Misogyny. Just because she happened to be a woman didn't mean that she wasn't able to be a president. If it was Margaret Thatcher, every Republican there would have voted for her. If it was Candace Owens, most Republicans would have voted for her. It's not about being a woman. These are built-in excuses of a left that's too busy screaming and preaching and ridiculing than they are trying to understand their own faults. And that's why they keep losing. Now, the Republicans, we didn't win because of misinformation. We won despite the misinformation. I'm going to show you a couple of things real quick, and then I'm going to move on to the commercial. Let's talk about misinformation. Okay? What do they say? Biden and Harris both said time and time again, and all their surrogates did, they said that violent crime is going down.
They did.
Didn't they?
Constantly.
It was a cornerstone of their campaign.
Yeah.
As a prosecutor, blah, 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 blah. I've been a prosecutor, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Crime is going down under the Biden administration. No, it's not. No, it's not. That was the misinformation. And the press we talked about earlier with that big split of positive stories, they pushed this narrative. That was misinformation.
Never exposed it.
Now, consider this. Crime is actually going up if you look at the actual data. Just because it's not being prosecuted as much by liberal DAs in some of these big cities doesn't mean the crimes aren't being committed.
Yep.
And that's the distinction there. A lot of it doesn't get investigated or prosecuted or punished. And we know this because if you travel, and you and I have traveled, you see the effects of prosecutors and mayors who turn a blind eye to crime in big cities. One of our favorite towns is Chicago.
Yep.
And I know Southerners think we're out of our minds for loving Chicago. It's the best city in this country. But you better be careful. Because when you have the wrong mayor and the wrong prosecutors, the police don't have any help. And so criminals sense that, and they leave the west side and they leave the far south side, and the next thing you know, they're knocking on Michigan Avenue. That's a problem. But it happens predictably when you follow Democrat policies. And yet, the misinformation was crime is down. They lied about that. What about inflation? They also said during that whole race, inflation is under control.
They were repeating that the whole way up until last Tuesday.
But you can't say that to people who have to shop every Friday.
That's my point.
I mean, I went to a couple of days ago. I go into Walgreens. I bought like 5 items.
Yeah,
it's $100, and the girl behind the counter says, "Man, you can burn that Benjamin fast, can't you?" I said, "Yes." Guess what? Prices are up 20% from where they were just a few years ago, in large part because of federal spending pushed by Harris and Biden. Now we see it. We know the prices are up, and we're being told it's under control.
It's good.
That's the misinformation we were faced with. But what did they do? They basically truncated a period of time over a year and argued that inflation was down. Well, if your inflation is at 6% here and it goes to 4% here, technically it's down, but it's still 4% higher than it should be because of your bad policies. So they make these arguments misinformation. That's the point I'm making. It gets worse. Prices are going up, and they're telling us, don't trust your pocketbook. Don't trust your eyes. Who you going to believe, me or your lying eyes, right?
Yeah.
Don't trust your eyes. Trust us. That's true misinformation. And it was just the beginning. What about the stock market? We kept hearing the issue about the stock market is at an all-time high, and it is. But remember, the misinformation here is almost implied. Let's think about it. You say the stock market's at an all-time high. Well, that's great if you have stocks.
Yeah.
Right? The stock market's at an all-time high. That's great if you've got a really nice retirement account, right?
Yeah.
Most Americans don't. What they were trying to imply was the economy was strong and it was robust, but that's only one measure of the economy. Now, granted, if you've got stocks right now, if you're in the market, man, yeah, it's been great for a while, and it got a lot better after Trump won.
Yeah.
But when you tell people that and you imply that the economy is good, and yet they're looking at this big boom in the market, but they still have to pay more for bread and milk and potatoes, it doesn't translate. But that's a degree of misinformation, because when they say everything is fine, it couldn't be stronger, that's not true, because the market really only impacts a relatively small percentage of people under those circumstances. One more. Misinformation. Immigration. What do they tell us? It's under control, man.
They fixed it.
Biden signed some presidential orders. I'm a former prosecutor. I know what it's like. We're not going to let these folks break these laws. That was misinformation. So, with all that being said, I'm trying to be fair to everybody here. Most of the misinformation came from them. Most of the misinformation on the pertinent issues that mattered came from the mainstream media that was in the tank for Miss Harris, and it didn't work. Now, what does that tell you? It tells me their days of power are ending. Their days of power are ending, not the establishment's.
No.
That's the next big fight. We're beating the media. We're getting around them now thanks to social media, alternative news sources. We're getting around the media. But how do we get around the establishment? How do we finally beat the establishment? A big test is coming up tomorrow. We're going to talk about that after this commercial. We'll be right back. So here we are. Here we are on the verge of something transformative. It's what we've wanted for a long time.
Yeah.
I have railed, and you have railed, against the establishment for as long as I can remember. I've run races against those people. I have fought against those people. I despise those people. They're crooked. They're corrupt. They'll do anything to maintain control of power. They'll destroy your name, your family, your profession, whatever they have to do to maintain a little bit of power. We've seen that time and time and time again. Now, in 2016, Trump was new. Like somebody said today, he had just come off of managing his real estate empire, and he didn't know a whole lot about D.C., but he was there to be a transformative figure to make change. But it didn't happen the way we hoped. Well, that was a long time ago. He's had 8 years to digest, 8 years to learn, 8 years of wisdom. The first 4 years he was there, guess what? Just like now, or like we think it will be, he had control of, the House and the Senate.
Yep.
And the White House. For 2 years.
Yep.
Swamp didn't get drained.
Not even remotely.
That's a secret. I know a lot of folks think it did. It didn't even get touched.
No.
The water wasn't even reduced.
No.
Okay? No. In fact, just the opposite things occurred. The swamp creatures in the Senate were propped up. And Trump endorsed almost all of them for re-election. I know. Every time I get into that, people get mad at me. You can read about it. Google it. It's true. He endorsed Romney. He endorsed
accurate.
Mitch McConnell.
Yep.
He endorsed Lindsey Graham. He endorsed every one of those people that hate his guts. He endorsed every one that worked against him, everyone that stabbed him in the back. Every one he endorsed prior to them taking those long, sharp knives and trying to end his career, even this year before he got the Republican nomination. He propped him up. Now, my assumption is, and I think others, is that he had a plan. It didn't work out as well as we thought it would. He's back. Now what? Now what? Because the fight is going to be the Senate.
It has to be.
Let's not kid ourselves. Yeah. It's going to be the Senate. Let me give you a couple of examples. Bear with me here, because I am on Trump's side 1,000%, and I want to see the swamp drained, probably more than anybody out there wants to see the swamp drained. I know it's hard to believe. I would push most of that city into the Potomac if I could. Not literally. Take it easy. Here's an example. Trump campaigned to shut down the Federal Department of Education.
He did?
That's a darn fine campaign promise. One that Ronald Reagan worked with, one that I ran on, and was immediately ridiculed and called it on the mat by the GOP establishment in Mississippi.
You hate education, Chris.
It's crazy. 14, we're running that race, everything's good. And my position's been just like this. We need to abolish the Federal Department of Education. And I was only saying what I believed. I believed it because not only have I studied it, but I heard other great politicians say it. Ronald Reagan, one of my favorite politicians. He came to power as a president just after this department was created by none other than Jimmy Carter. Yep. Now, Jimmy Carter is a good man, but he was a terrible president. And this was a bad idea. He created the Federal Department of Education as a present to a major teachers union. They helped him get elected. He says, here's your gift. So he creates this nice big cabinet level position. It's been there since then. And ever since this was created, Republicans railed against it. So I was railing against it. And then the very Republicans that I've heard say it attacked me for doing it. Haley Barbour, you're probably still listening. You know what I'm talking about. Haley Barbour was governor of our state, and I was a senator with Haley Barbour. And Haley Barbour was talking about abolishing the Federal Department of Education. Then I said, Chris is going to shut down schools. He hates teachers and kids. You heard it.
I did.
Right?
Yeah. I mean,
it just goes to show these people what they'll do to maintain power and control. But keep in mind, despite Reagan, despite Barbour, despite them all saying they want to abolish it, no matter how many times we had power, no matter how many times we held both the House and the Senate and the presidency, we never got rid of the Federal Department of Education.
Didn't even really try.
We didn't even try. And ask yourself this before I go any further. Since the Federal Department of Education was established back in 1979, have educational attainment and scores gotten better or worse?
Worse.
Yeah. Its track record is abysmal.
It is.
Like most federal agencies, the track record is horrific. And yet, we gain control and we campaign on getting rid of it. But when we finally get right down to getting it done, everybody chickens out and runs another direction.
We'll just try to fix it.
Well, here's the thing. Now, Trump, okay, you're getting to my point now.
Yep.
And I'm getting mad again, like I started the show, because I know how these people think and I know what's about to happen. And it's going to devastate us in a few years. We'll talk about this moment in a few years. Here we are. I'm using the Federal Department of Education as an example, just as an example. I know federal money goes to the department. And I know the department then takes that money and they allocate it based on federal standards to states. And I know when they allocate it, there are strings attached to it.
Yep.
And so these states that are addicted to federal spending, they say, sir, yes, sir, you want us to teach that junk in our classrooms? We'll teach the junk in our classrooms in exchange for a little bit of money. That's how the feds control the states. Remember, education is inherently a state-centered issue. So if you're wondering why your kids are learning foolishness, go all the way up, follow the trail of money, because the foolishness is attached as a condition to receiving the money, right? Now, we know this. And we know it's a problem, and we know it's abusive, and Trump is saying he wants to get rid of it. Okay, here we go. Here's the problem. He can't get rid of it. He has to have the Senate and the House. In fact, all those big ideas he had, all of them, he has to have the Senate and the House. He can't build a wall without money. He's got to have the Senate and the House. He can't cut spending without the Senate and the House. He can't abolish agencies. He can't fire federal employees without the Senate and the House. And tomorrow, after all this work, after all these fights, after all this consternation trying to get him elected, the Senate comes down to a single vote. Who's going to lead it?
Yep.
And if the wrong person wins that race, Trump won't get his agenda passed. I told you last week they'll wait him out. I told you last week if we don't fight for this right now, they'll wait him out. He'll go 4 years and nothing will change. Did I say that?
You absolutely did.
All right, so here's where we are. Mitch McConnell is presently the Senate Majority Leader and has been since about 1836.
That's accurate.
Right? Okay. He has 2 hand-selected puppets that work for him.
Yep.
They're not bad guys. I'm not suggesting that. They're not conservatives. They're not Trump-style populists or conservatives. They're just not.
No.
Now, again, they're not bad guys. I'm sure they're great to hang out with. But the question is Trump going to get his agenda passed?
Not with those two.
Under Thune or Cornyn, it ain't going to happen.
Nope.
Now, McConnell obstructed Trump every chance he got. Don't kid yourself. Don't kid yourself. And if you've heard about McConnell's book and about some of those very nasty things he said about Trump, you know that McConnell never for a moment liked Donald Trump. He worked against him every single chance he got. So McConnell's number 2 is Thune, his number 3 is Cornyn. And those are the 2 he's propping up. So much so he's called a secret vote to take place tomorrow. Secret. Let's work through this for a second, because I thought Republicans were for transparency. I thought Republicans were talking about shining light on the issues.
Yeah.
How do you shine light? How do you have transparency and a secret vote?
It's cowardly.
It's worse than that. It's anti-democratic. It's the anti-Republican form of government. It's supposed to be our government, isn't it?
I thought so.
The whole point is they're there to do what we ask them to do. And right now we're asking them to have a public vote so we can see who votes for whom. That's not a big deal. You ought to be mad enough to put your support behind your candidate, right?
Yep, and that way we can hold you accountable if you're not doing the will of the people. But that's the reason they're hiding it.
That's it. They're hiding it. And McConnell has moved this vote up to hide it on purpose. And most conservatives in this country are backing Rick Scott out of Florida.
Yep.
You know, and most populists are. Most Trump supporters are. I mean, it's been pretty consistent throughout the day, throughout the last week. And Rick Scott, just let me share something of importance to you real quick. Rick Scott happens to have a pretty successful and dynamic conservative voting record as a whole. It's not bad at all. Now, I'm not going to be able to find it now that I've said that, which is the way things normally work. But let me just tell you, as a whole, when you talk about the ACU scores or the Club for Growth scores or other scores that vote, hey, no point, Jack, we're moving on. It shows him at least at an 88 to 90 plus across the board on all the major indexes, which means he checks the boxes. He is a conservative. And then the other 2 men, Thune And Cornyn, just the opposite, 30s and 40s on the indexes, roughly half of his conservative strength. Now, it gets worse. I don't like talking about this because I know I'm making people mad, but I just want to share with you the truth of the matter. And I've got some data here somewhere. I won't be able to find it either, but I can remember most of it. Let's start with Trump. Okay? You ready?
Yeah.
Trump was running for office again in 2024. And the vast majority of Republicans in this country backed him.
Yep.
Am I right about that?
100%.
He polled first from day one among the people seeking the nomination. You know, everybody was wanting it, but he polled first. Thune came out immediately and endorsed somebody else. Cornyn actually gave a speech where he said it was basically time to move on from Trump. Stop. Darn near the entire party was backing Trump. Thune supports someone else.
Yeah.
Cornyn gives a speech in Texas that says it's time to move on from the policies of Trump.
Let's dump him.
That's what they believe. Now, again,
Yep.
I'm not suggesting they're bad people. I'm sure they're good people. But if you want to see Trump's agenda passed, those two men are not going to get it done.
No.
Okay? They both criticized him heavily on the January 6th nonsense. It was Cornyn that attacked him on COVID response. Mm-hmm. Both of those men have a history of being hypercritical to President Trump. Now, do you think they're going to support his agenda or not if they're elected in that position?
Oh, they're absolutely not going to
They're not.
support his agenda.
They're
They're going
not.
to do whatever Mitch McConnell wants them to do.
So all these promises don't mean a darn thing unless we can win a position, Scott, that has already promised to do things that need to be done. For instance, let me give you some for instance here. You do realize that during the last time Trump ran for office, the Democrats would block many of his nominees, particularly in the Senate, that last 2 years especially. And they did it because they would not allow recess appointments.
Yeah.
You're familiar with that.
I am.
So Trump posted on his social media platform the other day an issue about needing a leader that would support recess appointments. Scott immediately responds and says, I'll do it. I'll get it done for you. And what that means is Trump can actually get his people in positions of power and authority so we can begin to sweep this swamp clean. But if they don't allow recess appointments, you don't get it done.
Yeah.
If you don't find ways to adjust the filibuster and get creative there, you don't get it done. They'll have a built-in excuse. I can see it now. Thune will come to the podium and say, man, I was for getting rid of the Department of Education, but we only had 53 votes. We just didn't have the votes. Couldn't do it. That's what you're going to see. And so all this energy and all this excitement, all these boat parades and the cars and the flags, it means nothing if you can't find a way to influence the Senate. Rick Scott can get that done. Otherwise, the establishment's still in control, and that's what's so infuriating. I don't know why Americans can't see this. The establishment controls every aspect of that city still to this day, and they believe that Trump can sweep in without the force of the legislative branch and to get changes done, but he can't. He doesn't have the authority, doesn't have the power. So we're going to be sitting here in 3 or 4 years having this same conversation, and the Department of Education is still going to be staring us right in the face.
Right there.
Right in the face. And so are the other departments and all the other bureaucrats.
It's frustrating for sure, Chris, because, I mean, again, to us it's clear because we've been studying it, we've seen it, we know firsthand exactly who these establishment types are. But the vast majority of Americans, again, I'm talking to you, you're once every 4-year voters, I'm mainly talking to you, they think that the president has powers he doesn't have a lot of times. They don't seem to understand the importance. They also still buy into the notion of red versus blue. They don't understand that there are certain people on the said red team that are not a part of the conservative team.
Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating because you get a big victory and you think everything's fine. It's kind of like Ole Miss beating Georgia. You know? You get that one big victory and we think everything's fine, and then
Going to the playoffs.
It may not be fine, but here we know it's not going to be fine if the Senate happens to be held by the same individuals. Now, this is where I'm going to get in real big trouble, because I'm speaking to Mississippi now. Rand Paul came out today and told us exactly who he was supporting.
Yep.
Even little Marco Rubio came out and said exactly who he was supporting.
Yep.
Where are our two senators?
As quiet as they normally are. Because they're not going to vote the way we want them to, and we already know that.
I mean, they're sitting there, Wicker and Cindy Hyde-Smith. Again, they're good people. But they claim they support Trump. And they fooled you all, and you believed it, and you keep voting them in. But here are the biggest vote of their careers on the issue of Trump is who they select to be Senate Majority Leader. And one leaked poll, or one leaked information from D.C. showed that neither one of them was going to support Rick Scott.
Nope.
Which means they'll either support Cornyn or Thune.
I've seen, and again, I don't know how I've seen several say Thune is.
Well, we don't know it's true or not, but it seems true. Let me tell you why it seems true. Because if it wasn't true, they would come out boldly in support of Scott. Think about it.
Yeah.
Scott is the people's choice. Scott is the Trump universe's choice. Everybody, from Elon Musk to Tucker Carlson, he's the choice. And yet, they're not taking a position.
Nope.
Mississippi,
they are the exact type of people that is the reason why Mitch McConnell made this a secret vote in the first place, because he knows there are folks like Roger Wicker, Cindy Hyde-Smith, and of course, to some of you in other states, I'm talking about your guys too, if they've not taken a stand, they know they have to protect these people, because those of us that are paying attention, we will get on a loud megahorn if we see how they vote.
But I'm talking to the people. Nobody cares. They don't care. The people aren't listening. Let me be clear about this. You'll keep voting them in.
Yeah.
They'll stab Trump in the back. They'll vote for a majority leader who's going to confront and stop and obstruct his agenda. And a few years will come by, and you'll do the right same thing you've always done. And then you'll wonder, I wonder why things can't change. I wonder, it's the little old ladies out there who I love dearly, and I just hate the direction this country's going in, and how will I fix it? By voting for the same people for the last 45 years.
Yeah.
Right? We've seen that since we were kids, and I just don't know why it's so bad. But, Roger's such a nice guy, and he is. You can't take anything from him there. Nice.
Yeah.
Good guy. But if you're going to be for Trump, then be for Trump.
Yeah, I want to see, and again, not knocking anyone, but I want to see bold leadership. I don't want to see folks that are completely controlled by those in their party leadership. I want to see folks who are willing to stand out there. Again, to your point, you said it best just a second ago when you said, if you're for Trump, show me you're for Trump. I want to see that. I want to see you go to war for him.
Just show us evidence. It can't just be a picture you've taken with him. It can't just be a press release that you say you support Trump. This is the vote that shows whether or not you do or you don't. And because of a secret ballot, we'll never know.
No.
Give me a break. I can't believe y'all are falling for this. I can't believe people are falling for this.
I sadly can, because again, and I hate to be that guy, Chris, but you know it. I don't have much faith in the American electorate, because I've seen example after example. Don't get me wrong. Last Tuesday, great, happy for the results that we got last Tuesday, but everybody's gonna go back to sleep now. They're the once every 4-year voters. They show up, they get involved for a presidential race, and then they don't pay attention to a bloody thing else.
But let's give a bit of historical context here. And then I'll start wrapping this show up today, because we've made enough people mad. I'm sure there are establishment voters out there just thinking how horrific all this is. And yet you can't you can't disprove a single thing we've said.
No.
Here's a guy, Michael Massey. Michael Massey is a guy that I once helped with a show he had years ago. We co-hosted for a little while. And Michael Massey is a good conservative man. He's an African-American commentator. He writes a lot. He stays very vocal, very active. I want to look at some of his words here, because this is a different perspective, not ours. but it mirrors ours. And he uses some historical significance here, some context, to prove just how bad it's all gotten. He says, I'm a supporter of President Trump, and we're blessed to have him elected. True. But that cannot be the end of our involvement. Listen to this. I caution all to remember the betrayal perpetrated by Mitch McConnell, Karl Rove, immediately after we handed the Republican Party historic congressional victories in 2010. Listen, this is his words, not mine. They betrayed us on Obamacare. The Republican machine raised massive amounts of money, saying and promising they would repeal it if you would just let them retake the Congress. We delivered, and they backstabbed us. They funded Obamacare. They worked to make sure Obama faced no real opposition in his fundamental changing of America. Number two, this is Michael saying these things. I don't want to take credit for it. I've already said enough inflammatory things tonight. He says, Mitch McConnell blacklisted prolific Republican fundraising groups because they raised money for Tea Party groups, and he did. The Tea Party was emerging as a conservative conscience for the Republican Party. It was emerging as a base of activists that could actually get out there and change things. McConnell went to war with the Tea Party. And by the way, it's the Tea Party today that elected Donald Trump. Don't kid yourself.
Yeah.
The same activists, the same fighters McConnell went to war with. And so these groups that would raise money for Tea Party candidates, he actually worked behind the scenes to gut them, to take away their fundraising apparatus. And they even ran Democrats, supported Democrats in New Jersey. Did you know that? So you had Rove, McConnell, and Romney and a host of others that actually worked against Republicans and now have been working against President Trump.
Yep.
Then listen to this paragraph. Much of the same political cabal that undermined President Trump during his first time is still there active on the Hill. One would hope this time Trump knows what backstabbers to keep and which ones to get rid of. I don't know. Look, big vote tomorrow.
Huge.
And I got money says it's going to be Thune or Cornyn. Thune, that's who it's going to be.
That's who I think it's going to be. And I hate it. I hope to be proven wrong tomorrow because, again, I don't like not having faith in our government. I don't mind not having faith in I don't like not having faith in our electorate. And when it's Thune, folks won't care. They won't know to care. Because again, we got Trump, and that's all they're going to focus on. They're not going to focus on the little things. And then in 2 or 3 years, when Trump's not able to get stuff done, they'll be questioning, well, why can't he get it done? They still will go vote for the same people that stood in his way. Some of them, because they're hidden behind a secret vote. Others will be out in front, and yet they'll still make excuses for those politicians because they always do.
The system is broken. It's been broken for a long time, and it's broken because money controls it, and money controls the politicians. The politicians don't speak for the people. They speak for the donor class. They speak for the rich and the wealthy. And as long as that's the case, we're going to have problems because it's our fault. It's the voters' fault. It's our fault. It's my fault. It's your fault. Here's why. Because we watch TV during election time, or we see these ads or these direct mail pieces during election time, and we never question for a moment, how on earth is that candidate affording all of this?
Yeah.
It never dawns on us that when one of these senators has a TV ad every 30 seconds, that costs millions and millions and millions of dollars. That's not coming from regular people. That's coming from the donor class.
Yep.
It's coming from Mitch McConnell. And then you wonder why those senators have the marching orders and never, ever turn away from the marching orders, because Mitch controls them, because he controls the flow of money. It's our fault because the money is winning these elections. Don't kid yourself. Whoever raises the most money is going to win the election, because the voters are going to sit there and watch those TV ads and believe every single word they hear. Now, here's where there's a disconnect. Those same voters, when you ask them in polling, what do you think about negative ads? They all say, well, I hate negative ads, and if a politician gets negative, I'm not going to support them. Yes, you do. You believe every word. That's the problem. They work.
Yeah.
And those memos and those papos, some of the finest people in the world, they'll sit there after Wheel of Fortune, and they're watching that TV, and they see those attack ads, and they believe every word. And they never question, where do those millions of dollars come from? They never even question whether the truth is being told.
No.
They bite it hook, line, and sinker, and you wonder why the establishment holds sway in this country. If we can do anything left to save this country, it's not about a single presidential race. It's about getting rid of the establishment everywhere they are. And that's hard because they have the money.
I can even give an example of how ridiculous some of these attack ads are. And I'm sorry, I'm going to use you as the example.
Oh, here we go.
Chris, weren't you the lead attorney against Obamacare?
I was.
Wasn't there an attack ad at one time painting you as a pro-Obamacare candidate? Weren't you standing in a swamp and you were the swamp creature that was trying to save Obamacare?
Yeah. Welcome to hell. Right? Let me tell you how it works. So, yes, I took the case on behalf with Phil Bryant in Mississippi to fight against Obamacare. I was the lead counsel for that case. Okay. I did it free of charge.
Yeah.
Pro bono.
Yeah.
My firm didn't like that very much, but I thought that was important.
Yeah.
Right? Free of charge. And then, right after I announced against Wicker back in the day, he has about a $1.5 billion ad buy the next day. I think right after I finished my announcement, the first attack ad hit.
Yeah.
And literally, it had me standing in the swamp. And it called me a swamp creature.
Yeah.
And up to that time, my entire life had been pushing back against the swamp. My entire life had been fighting the swamp. My entire life. But that commercial had me in the swamp, going back and forth. It was very well done.
Yeah.
And Mama and Papa, that McDaniel boy's a swamp creature because they're just not thinking.
No.
They're not thinking because money controls the races.
Absolutely.
And they know that. And again, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to say it again. Roger Wicker's not a bad guy. Cindy Smith is not a bad person. These are good people. It's just the system has so much control.
Is bad. Yeah.
It has so much control. And instead of pushing back against the system, they don't because they know they wouldn't get reelected without the system's money. And so, who's controlling who? That's the question. It's just like the Mississippi Senate, Delbert Hosemann. Mm-hmm. I mean, a Democrat.
Yeah.
Not a senator. Well, there's a few. There's a handful of senators there that actually speak for the people. The rest are going to do whatever it is they're told. It's just like that in Washington as well. You don't think Mitch McConnell has those meetings and says, "Get in line, boys and girls. Mitch is here." And if you don't get in line, you're not getting those campaign contributions. You don't think that conversation happens all the time?
100% it happens.
It happens all the time. And the second you step out of line, the second you vote against him, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Mike Lee, you're ostracized. You don't get to go to the cocktail parties. You're in a double-wide trailer down by the Potomac in a boathouse or something.
You don't even get Senate campaign help when you're running for your life, like what happened to Ted Cruz this go around.
No, you don't. But that's the danger. And look, you call us whatever you want to call us. This is the truth of the matter. Follow the campaign donations, you'll see. I'm just trying to wake you up, and it's not working. It's not working. But tomorrow, we'll just find out how awake we are. Because if there's not incredible outrage over that vote, and who knows, maybe tonight, the good Lord will speak to some of these senators and Scott will come out victorious. But don't hold your breath. As long as the money machine and Mitch McConnell is there, it's going to be tough to overcome that.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. I have no faith that those senators are going to do that. There'll be a few. You've already named the ones that we know will do the right thing, but the vast majority of them, because they know that they are shielded under the cover of darkness, will not feel any obligations to do the right thing because we'll never know it, that they didn't vote the way we wanted them to. So that is the whole reason why.
Meanwhile, one quick thing, and I'm going to get out of here. Are there any other talk radio host, any other podcasters, anybody in this state that had the guts to say what we said tonight?
Probably not.
Why? Super Talk has, 8, 9, 10 channels? And all these so-called conservative broadcasters? And I wonder if they've talked about how big this vote is tomorrow. And I wonder if they've called around trying to figure out who is going to vote for who. I don't know. But I just have a sneaking suspicion, maybe not, because money goes a long way. And
it does.
If they did, I'm sorry. I didn't see it. Almost nobody watches it.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. Here's what I do know is that we need people at least talking about this, because if you value Trump's agenda, and I do, we need the Senate. And not just 53. We need the majority leader to be there, because he controls the flow of legislation.
Yep.
And without him, good luck. Good luck.
No hope.
All right. Well, we've offended enough people tonight. It's time to go home and offend my kids.
There you go.
All right. I've had a good time, Jack. Thank you for being here. Those of you that stuck around, I appreciate it very much. You're always going to just get straight shooting from us. I promise you that. Again, this is the Chris McDaniel's Show on the Midnight Ride Network, your home of the anti-establishment movement in this country. We hope to keep it that way. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0.
Wow, it's so soft and smooth.
It's cool to the touch. How did you do that?
Well, we took My Pillow's patented fill and combined it with this new technology that we didn't have back then when I invented My Pillow to bring you the best pillow in history, My Pillow 2.0. Just like all of you, I never imagined that My Pillow could get any better. That's why I haven't changed it in nearly 20 years. Then I heard about a revolutionary new technology, and I knew I had to bring it to you all. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
The My Pillow 2.0 is cooler and softer than the last My Pillow. It is so comfortable to sleep on at night. I look forward to going to bed, and I wake up well rested in the morning.
Sleep is all about temperature and height. My Pillow 2.0's patented adjustable fill is going to give you the exact individual support you need from your head to your bed. And now here's where it gets even better. We've all experienced those temperature-related sleep interruptions where you get too hot, you toss and turn, you flip your pillow over to the cool side. Well, all that's gone with my brand new My Pillow 2.0 cooling fabric that's made with temperature-regulating thread.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit MyPillow.com.